Hello students, we meet again for this segment of iTTV PMR English. This is your tutor Elizabeth Marshall with you again. Hope you have been practicing your English. I know you have been. Today we'll be looking at sequence connectors in our bid to use grammar effectively. The object of this exercise is to make you think about connecting your sentences and to allow you to build on the list of sequence connectors that you may know, and also to improve your English. What do they connect? Obviously, they connect two sentences. It is just that they need to be connected in such a way to show you that the first one is connected very much to the second sentence. To connect this sentence, the sequence connectors is always in the second sentence. Let's look at some of the connectors. When you use linking words like for, however, therefore, which are your sequence connectors, you show that that connection is with what has already been said, which is the first sentence. Again, when you use linking words like however, therefore, to show what that connection is with what has already been said. Those are your sequence connectors. Some examples again. Connectors that show the order an event unfolds are, secondly. What might these events be? They might be in an experiment. These connectors are often used in an experiment at times. In instruction booklets, they come out in instruction booklets telling you which step needs to be taken and what your second step is. Connectors that show that order an event unfolds are, secondly. I'll give you an example before you give me one. The word secondly. Pour water into the bottle. Secondly, cap it. This gives you the clear instruction of what needs to be done. What needs to be done first and what needs to be done second. Now, students, you may try. Yes, use the word secondly.
Turn off the TV. Secondly, pull out the plug.
Yes, that's very good. Let's go on to the second one. The word next. I'll give you an example and again you try after that. Turn off the TV. Next, pull the socket off the wall. Going back to what I said earlier, these connections are very good for instructions. I'll repeat. Turn off the TV. Next, which is your sequence connector, pull the switch off the wall. Yes, students, you may try.
Beat the eggs well. Next, add the sugar.
A good attempt. Your next word, something that you've come across often, the word is then. My example for you, she flew from London to Frankfurt. Then she took a train to her hometown. When I say the word she flew, I of course mean she went by the airplane. Then she took a train to her hometown. Yes, students, you may try.
I put on my makeup. Then I splashed the perfume on.
Excellent. That's simple enough. Now for the word finally. Something that sort of shows you something has come to the final attempt or the final time. My example for you. Hamida refused to listen no matter who spoke to her. Finally, she listened to her grandmother. The word again comes at the beginning of the second sentence. Finally, she listened to her grandmother. Yes, students, I'm sure you're now ready to give me an answer. I'm trying to make a sentence with finally.
Ellen called and called. Finally, Ellen answered.
Yes, very good. Now, students, let's go on to a short passage I have for you about students in Malaysia taking literature in English. Please watch out for the sequence connectors here. Some of them may be something you're not very familiar with. They might be longer words, meaning there are more letters to the words. Students taking Literature in English paper for the SPM examination are increasing in numbers, meaning there are more and more. This is a healthy trend as reading for this subject involves concerted effort. I'll take some time to explain to you the meaning of some of the words here. As I said, increasing in number means getting to be more and more. That means more students. This is a healthy trend. The word trend, another vocabulary word you might want to remember, because it also refers to fad, something that we came across in a previous lesson, or fashion. For this subject involves concerted effort. The word concerted means a lot of effort, a lot of effort. However, in Malaysia, the fashion is for young female students to be taking the subject as opposed to the opposite gender. Let me explain some of the words that are here that you might not already know. The word gender. It actually means type. There are basically two genders, the male and the female. So here, as opposed to the opposite gender here, what do you think that refers to, students?
Boys.
Yes, that's right. It refers to boys or males. Let's go back to the sequence connector. However, in Malaysia, the fashion is for young female students to be taking the subject as opposed to the opposite gender. The word however sort of explains for you what happened before. Consequently, this is what I was referring to when I said there might be words that you were not too familiar with, but this is a good word for you to remember because they are very useful when you want to explain a process, like in a science subject. Consequently, the word is consequently. Literature in this part of the world is seen as a girl's female domain. Let me explain the word domain. That means it sits squarely in the space which the females or the girls are interested in. This is true. Now, to put all that into practice, to see how these connectors actually work, let's go on to the recipe. Marzipan balls. And we're talking about how many of the balls, the marzipan balls, can be made. Let's look at a recipe now for marzipan balls. This recipe makes 60 balls. 8 ounces of almonds. I'm sure you know what they are. They're sort of nut. Good nuts. 8 ounces of icing sugar, which is a sort of very soft and smooth type of sugar, not the kind of sugar that you would use at breakfast. Sieved, meaning they are removed of all granules that are rough. 1 egg white. Obviously, this means there are no yolks involved, just the egg white. 1 teaspoon rose water, 1 teaspoon rum. Yes, rum is a sort of alcohol that is sometimes used to flavor these sorts of sweet meats. 1 teaspoon almond essence, 2 teaspoons cocoa powder, and this makes 60 sweet cases. First, bring some water to the boil. What I mean is to allow some water to boil, add the almonds and steam for 1 minute. Or the other way of saying it is add the almonds and steam for a minute. Put the almonds into a sieve and rinse under cold water. Drain and remove the brown skin. Again, sieve is to remove any of the bigger particles so that what is left is what is cold and what is soft. Secondly, lay the almonds on a cloth and leave them to dry for 12 hours. Yes, the word that I gave you an example of and the word that you managed to make a good sentence with. Lay the almonds on a cloth and leave them to dry for 12 hours. Obviously, as I said, this is going to take you a lot more time. Finally, grind the almonds in a spice grinder or in a blender. What is a spice grinder? It is something that you use to blend or to smoothen spices. And a blender, obviously, is something that a utensil you would get in a kitchen. Mix the almonds with the icing sugar. Yes, another sequence connector for you. Then, to tell you the process goes on. Then, lightly whisk the egg white. What do we mean by whisk? Beat it. Add the rose water, the rum, and the almond essence to the almond and icing sugar mixture, and gradually add just enough of the egg white. Next, make a cherry-sized ball from the marzipan mixture. You will get 60 of them. Sieve the cocoa powder on a plate and coat the balls with it. Finally, which is a word that tells you a process is coming to an end. Finally, serve in the sweet cases. So that's your recipe for you. Let's now summarize what we have learned today. Basically, this exercise is, students,
Learning about sequence connectors.
yes, learning about sequence connectors. What are some of the connectors that you have studied?
Consequently,
A difficult one is, of course, consequently. Another one?
However,
Yes, students. However,
next,
next.
then.
Very good. Why do you have to use these sequence connectors? What happens when you do use the sequence connectors? Sequence connectors connect your sentences one to the other in a good way. It does not leave sentences jarringly out. Even when you speak, your listeners sort of know what's coming next as a consequence of. What you need to do is to practice using these sequence connectors. These are not just the only sequence connectors that are the English language. There are hundreds more. As you begin to get more apt in using English, you should go for sequence connectors that are longer and more sophisticated, which then are reflected in your style of speaking and writing. This brings us to the end of our segment on grammar and sequence connectors. Remember, the more you use, the more language you use, the better you become. Till then, it is bye-bye from your tutor from ITTV, Elizabeth Marshall, signing off.